Welcome to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Welcome to Calgary International Airport and welcome aboard the AnyBuilds Airbus A321LR. Today's flight is going to be from here in Calgary down to Salt Lake City. This is kind of a recreation of a scheduled flight, but the real one is a SkyWest E175 rather than a Delta A321, but I don't have an E-Jet for this sim and I do like flying the A321. So we're going to do it that way. Let's hop on board and get underway. I have already established electrical power to the aircraft just from the external power here, but apart from that we've begun from a cold and dark state, which we probably wouldn't realistically here. The aircraft would more likely be in a bit of a turnaround state, but anyway, I'll get into the cockpit preparations. So we basically do three sort of lines up the overhead here. So starting on the left, crew oxygen supply comes on. Test cockpit voice recorder. You can only just hear the little pinging noise it's making. And on up there, IRS is to nav. Down here on the center of the overhead, we'll put the emergency exit lights to armed. No smoking sign on. Seatbelt sign will be left off for now because we're not fueled yet. Having logo lights to 1, strobes to auto. And because it's a bit of a cold day and we don't have access to external air, I am actually going to start the APU now. So we'll have that spinning up. Fuel pumps also remain off for now because we're not fully fueled yet. Engine fire and APU fire tests. And I can't really look down and look for the indications on the panel in the ECAM just because of the way the view system works here. But anyway, cargo smoke test. That one we can because we have to cancel it manually. Anyway, that should clear itself momentarily. So then coming down here, make sure the clock is on GPS mode. The date, December 14th, 2025, which it is indeed. That's all as it should be. Accumulator pressure for the parking brake is good. We then come down here. And I will initiate the IRS alignment now to save a bit of time. So actually to do that, we'll go to the dashboard, load in my flight plan from SimBrief, which will enable us to do an initialization request from the FMS down here. So yeah, Calgary, Salt Lake City, alternate is, what's it called? Pocatello, Idaho. Ignore that bloody noise. Cost index 18, cruise flight level 390, that all matches up with what I saw in the briefing document, so that's alright. Moving down here, we'll set up the transponder. That just needs to go to auto and altitude reporting to on for now. Tilt is set to above and it's set to standby, that's alright. It's a nice bright day, we don't really need these integrated lights, don't really need them on the overhead either. Or on the here. Moving on down, we'll set the weather radar to all on the captain's display, but we'll leave it off for now. Speed brakes retracted, rotor trim 0, flaps are up, engine masters, engine mode selector are off, throttles are idle. That's all good for down here. And we still haven't cleared that cargo smoke test. Did I not do that properly? Was I even supposed to do it at all? I'm entirely sure, to be honest. Okay, now that's gone away. For now, he says. Okay, that's done. That's done. Coming over to here, we can have a look at the operational flight plan. I am using the Air Canada format for this just because it's the one that I'm used to. The main thing actually I was going to review in this was the weather. So at our departure point, this might actually be slightly out of date because I generated the OFP before the top of the hour. That says, yeah, 2006 Zulu, so actually current weather, we'd be better off grabbing that from here. So, wind 1204 at 4 knots, visibility 20 miles, few clouds at 8,000, broken at 25,000. Temperature 4, dew point -2, altimeter 2966. That's why my head hurts. because the pressure is pretty low today. And not much else to be said about that. Destination weather also looks pretty good for now, but we can have a look at the TAF for that down here in the OFP. Not much to worry about in there. And at our alternate, which is Pocatello, yeah, once again, nothing really to worry about in there. Did it put the route and weather charts in here? It did not, so we have a look at that in the OFP document in the browser here, just a little bit easier. So, there's the route, pretty much due south. Not much on the significant weather charts. Yeah, I don't think there's too much to worry about there. So in that case, we'll get into the payload and load the aircraft. Do the luggage, why not? Jetway's in place, so that door should be open, clearly. So we can also just load the load data in directly from SimBrief. The only change I think I'm going to make to that is I'm going to take, let's say, an even 15,000 pounds, so about 800 some odd pounds of extra fuel. That'll give us like 20-25 minutes of extra time. So just for any unforeseen little contingencies in there, and that matches up on here. That decam message should go away automatically shortly, so I won't worry about that for now. That's about all we need to do in here for the moment, so go back to the OFP and start preparing the charts. So, heading out of Calgary, it's just going to be runway 35, and then from, I think 6,500 is what I've managed to glean about the procedure in the lack of publicly available documentation. Once we reach 6,500, we go direct Ubval. And then once we arrive in Salt Lake City, it's going to be the Carter 1 arrival, runway 34 right, DBS transition. That's all good. So we'll grab the relevant charts for Calgary for now. We don't really need a specific, well, I tell you what, this is kind of useful. Yeah, so at the very least when a specific procedure is active, actually, it's 5,200 before proceeding on course, so we'll do that, because yeah, we're taking 35 right. Alright, we'll do that, that's fine. Still haven't been able to figure out which noise abatement procedure is used, so we'll just probably leave that as default in the FMS when it gets to that point. We'll take the ground chart, and that's probably about all we need for this, and we can prepare the charts and do all the arrival stuff for Salt Lake City once we're in the air. We should have enough time in the cruise to sort that out, so I'll leave that all be for now. And we'll head down to the FMS here. So, out of Calgary, departure, runway 35 right. No SID, insert that, and that will give us a nice handy discontinuity so that we can proceed on runway heading immediately after takeoff. And that's GPS primary, so the IRS is aligned. Fuel weight and CG disagree. We haven't entered those in the init page yet, so that's alright. Do block fuel 50.0, this is just automatically loading them from the payload panel in the EFB over there. And we'll do the correct 0 fuel weight and CG, and it's cleared that ECAM message, so we're all good. Now, the any-builds Airbuses don't seem to like it when you modify these figures very much, so I'm probably going to leave them be. I will grab the trip wind component, though, which is going to be plus 0.9, so that's a 9-knot tailwind. So, tail 0.9. And I'll sort of leave its calculations be there. So that's the takeoff already in. In terms of takeoff performance, we will hop up here once again. Synchronize runway 35 right. Now it's only giving us that length in Imperial there. Tell you what, we actually need the other ground chart for 17 left and 35 right. That's this part of the field that's not on the other chart. We're parked about here, by the way. So, Yeah, it's only giving us the length in metric. I can't be bothered converting it, to be honest. Oh, and it's got the runway heading wrong as well. It's 345. So that we can do, and it should be dry. Near as I can tell, it hasn't snowed in a couple of days. Ho ho ho. Wind. OAT. Actually, that didn't really match up either. Yeah, good thing I snagged some of this stuff. OAT is actually 1 degree. Apart from that, that all looks good. Air conditioning will be off. Anti-ice will be off. Okay, so that'll be flex 50, V1, 153, rotate 157, V2, 159. Trim will be 0.2 down, and we can send that directly to the FMS and then enter it automatically, which I will do because I'm having a bit of a no-effort day. Transition altitude is correct, that's 18,000. For thrust reduction, acceleration, once again, normally I would use Blackbox 711's website for that information, but it doesn't have a profile for Calgary, so I'm just going to leave it as is. And I'm not going to enter anything for the engine out SID either, because that's also normally where I would get that, so we just won't have an engine out, right? Nothing will go wrong. Anyway, that's all good, so we'll leave that on the takeoff page. We'll leave the flight plan page open on the other units. And let's see, moving on from there, we can set up everything up here. So flight directors will come on. I already put in the QNH. Cruise altitude will be 390, was it? Yes, so I will enter that directly because we're not using any ATC today, so we can just do a managed climb all the way up there without having to worry about cleared altitudes. Flight directors are on. Climb and nav appear as they should. Okie dokie, I think the next thing to do is the departure briefing, which I'm actually going to do roughly in accordance with the actual Airbus format, which I have some notes about here. So, beginning with the takeoff runway, that's going to be 35 right, and we'll be, we won't be going from any intersection, we'll be going right from the end, down here on Bravo. And, let's see, we do need an MSA, so let's find a chart that'll give us that. Probably any one of these will do that. So, because it's probably going to be something like that, our MSA will be 5,800 is going to be probably realistically where the highest obstacles are. Maybe 6,100 if we're going directly over the city, because downtown's kind of over here. So, that's what our MSA figure looks like. And let's see, if the outside air temperature is +1, we don't need to do any cold air altimeter correction, so that saves me a lot of math, so that's nice. Extra fuel, I took a little over 800 pounds of extra fuel, so that gives us like 15-20 minutes of extra time. Let's review hotspots for the taxi, not that one, that one. So just one here, which is 2. Aircraft taxiing for runway 17, which we're not doing. Often miss the turn onto taxiway Bravo instead of taxiway Delta, so make sure we turn at the right place, because we do need to take Bravo all the way to the end, because Delta is the one that ends at this end. So that's hotspots for the takeoff. In terms of return and diversion considerations, well, I mean, what were the winds like? Yeah, with 4 knots of wind, we could probably realistically use any runway if we absolutely had to. In practice, we would probably just come back to this one, not to 35 right. So, apart from that, the last item in my notes is threats for the departure. Not much I can really think of, really, apart from the aforementioned hotspot, which we already briefed, so I think that can reasonably be considered it for my probably not entirely proper departure briefing. And at that point we can run the cockpit preparation checklist. So gear pins and covers, that's not really simulated in this aircraft. Fuel quantity is 14,960 pounds, and that's balanced. Seatbelt sign can come on, as can the fuel pump, since we are fueled now. I kind of forgot about that. And, geez, the APU's been running for ages, so we could put the bleed on by now. Anyway, back to the checklist. Adirs, nav, and bearer reference 2966 cross-checked, and that's still up to date. So at that point, I think we can start clearing away the remaining ground equipment and get ready to get out of here. Now, thanks to a bug with the Unibuild's Airbuses, in order to remove the chocks, let's check the parking brakes on. In order to remove the chocks, I have to get out and do it myself. So off they go there. And pop back into the aircraft. This shade often goes down whenever you click the EFB, which is kind of annoying, but anyway. Jetway can go away. We can also shut off external power and get rid of the GPU. And at that point, that should be all of our ground equipment clear, and it should be just about time for pushback. So at that point, we will assume push clearance has been given. We'll put the beacon on, and that normally seems to prompt the arming of the slides, at least in this aircraft. So doors are closed, slides are armed, flight deck windows are closed, thrust levers are at idle, parking brake is on. And the before start checklist, I do believe, is now called for. So parking brake set, takeoff speeds and thrust, those are already in. Windows are indeed closed, and the beacon is indeed on, indicating that we're about to start. And at that point, I think we can call for pushback, which will be tail right. I use this lovely Toolbar pushback tool here. I will link to all mods and things of that nature in the description. It's a lot like better pushback for X-Plane, and less buggy than I've heard GSX is. So yeah, I don't use that, I use this. So pre-plan that, send that along. And just trying to think if there's anything I've forgotten. I don't think so, and the checklists are complete, so I think we're ready. Release parking brake, request pushback, and off you go. And we'll assume start clearance has also been given, so engine mode selector to start, wait for the FADEX to energize, and engine to start. And just monitor P's and P's that spools up. I will take a sip of water. Also make ready for the after start items when the time comes. So yeah, I basically already briefed the taxi. It's going to be out this way onto taxiway, what was it? Delta, and then straight down to the end of 35 right. Not too terribly long. I'll tell you what, the one thing I didn't initialize is the I think it's FLTL. Traffic injection, so I will do that. Oops. Right, that's done. Traffic parked at the various gates should begin popping in a cack-handed fashion any moment now. And engine 2 is stabilized, starting 1. And just monitor parameters for that. It does take quite a while with these newfangled super duper high bypass turbofans to spool up, so engine starts take a wee little bit of time. Yeah, not much else. So pushback's complete, we can set the parking brake and then just get rid of this. And I think that was the generator for engine 1 coming in. So it should be stabilized in just a few more seconds here. Yep, that is engine 1 stabilized, so engine mode selector goes to normal. APU bleed can come off. Anti-ice is not required for the moment, unless those clouds are lower than this said they were. Yeah, 8,000, that'll be after our acceleration, so we can put the engine anti-ice on then, I should think. So, APU master can come off. Cam status is checked, no nose wheels during disconnect. So spoilers shall be armed, rudder trim, check that it's at 0. Flaps will be config 1. We'll just verify that those come down. Pitch trim is going to be 0.2 down, or about 32%. And at this point we'll do the flight control check as well, so that'll be full left, full right, neutral, full up, full down, neutral, rudder, full left, full right, neutral, and on to the after start checklist. So anti-ice is off, ECAM status is checked, pitch trim, 32%, rudder trim, neutral, after start checklist complete, and we should be ready to taxi. So we'll pop the taxi light on, park and brake off, taxi straight ahead to Delta, and then right on Delta, right down to the end of 35 right. Not too complicated. And I'll just run a quick brake check on the initial roll. We don't want these needles to move, we want them to stay at 0, so brakes checked, pressure 0. And I'll hold the other taxi items until we're a little bit further along and away from the terminal. Keep the taxi speed to 10 knots since we'll be making a turn pretty soon. The idea with Airbuses and their carbon brakes is you want to minimize the number of brake applications on your taxi because that's what wears them down. So if one plans ahead a little bit, one can indeed keep that to a minimum. APU is still showing available because it has an automatic cooldown cycle that we don't need to worry about. So, oh yeah, it's Bravo we're taking to the end, in case I said Delta before. And that's it here, so. Make that turn. I think I've pretty much got the oversteer figured out for the A321. That nose wheel should be pretty close to the... He says, no, it isn't. I think I need to wait until it's more like over here, right? Whatever. Never mind that. Now that we're on a long straightaway, we can pick up a little bit of speed here without any issue. And I think my traffic injection should have done its thing, although I don't see anyone else over there. Never mind that, we'll figure that out later. Alright. And now that we're not pointing at the terminal, we'll do our taxi items. So auto brakes to max. Selectors, flying radar and predictive wind shear comes on, and that's why we wait till we're pointing away from the terminal so that we don't go irradiating anyone with the weather radar unnecessarily. Takeoff config, normal, and we've even got the cabin ready memo already, so that is the prompt for the taxi checklist. So flight controls, we checked those on the ramp already. Flaps, config 1 indicated, and that's where the lever is. Radar and predictive wind shear, we just turned that on. Engine mode selector, normal. ECAM memo has no blue. Taxi checklist is complete. Since I'm not watching where I'm going, we're kind of drifting off the center line a little bit. Now there is some traffic parked over there, everything's working normally, nothing to see here. So, I think I've pretty much run out of things to blabber about at this point. Basically, we'll do our lineup items once we're lining up, if you can believe it. And that'll be that. feel like those clouds are lower than was reported. We might need to pop our engine anti-ice on early. We'll see about that. We'll pick up a little bit more speed. As well, not waste any time stooging around on the ground. But yes, what is there to add? I suppose the reason I had the idea to do this route from Calgary to Salt Lake City is I was a passenger on the rail one a few weeks ago, and it's a very scenic arrival in particular, so I wanted to see about replicating it here, and I guess I haven't featured MSFS2024 yet on the channel. I have had it since about August, and I've pretty much gotten well into groove with it now. I mostly fly the Unibuilds Airbuses that come with it, so the A310, A320neo, and A321LR, oh, and the A330. And I also have the PMDG 777 that will probably be coming sooner or later as well. I enjoy that quite a lot, actually. The ability to do proper time acceleration with it is kind of unlocked long haul for me in a way that I couldn't really do before. Anyway, adjust my chair. We're coming up to our turn here. So we'll slow on down to 10 knots for that turn. There we are. And check that approach path is clear, why not? Even though I don't have any kind of non-static traffic running in the sim right now, but that's good practice. So, lineup items, takeoff runway, confirmed 35 right. Approach path, we already saw clear traffic. We'll put the lights on. Nose lights, landing lights, and the strobe needs to come to on instead of auto, because you always have to have strobes on when you're on a runway, even if you're just crossing it. And TCAS, Tara, tilt above. We'll turn the packs off since we're doing the bleeds off. Takeoff, cabin crew is already advised. I slightly overblew the turn there. I just caught it for a decent lineup, so. Lineup checklist, takeoff runway, confirmed 35 right, TCAS, Tara tilt above, packs off, lineup checklist complete. We'll make this a rolling takeoff, why not? Stabilize at 50% and 1 or thereabouts, start the clock, and give it the beans. Whoops. Sometimes miss the detent there. So takeoff, Manflex 50 SRS runway, auto thrust blue, holding a little bit of forward stick. And at 80 we start releasing that pressure. 100 knots. B1. Rotate gently in order to avoid a tail strike. Positive climb, gear up, a little bit bumpy. Ooh, a lot bumpy. And there's our acceleration and thrust reduction height. Acceleration's positive. So climb thrust, thrust climb, climb, auto thrust. Autopilot in. Direct. Obval, please. And I'll just hold the acceleration items until I put the flaps up here since we're coming up on that. So, flap 0, speed checked, flap 0. And pack 1 on. Turn off and nose lights can come off. Spoilers, whoops, spoilers disarmed. Certainly clicking on the armrest here. Flaps and gear will just verify are up, and put pack 2 on. You're supposed to leave a 10-second gap between when you turn those on, is the idea. And I guess those clouds are indeed about as high as reported, so if we pass directly through any of those, that will definitely count as visible moisture. Although I say that, temperature's actually going up as we climb here. Might be a bit of an inversion on today. It's definitely not unheard of at this time of year. What can we see outside? Obviously there's the runway we lifted off from, and that's the city of Airdrie. We'll see the rest of Calgary over there, which we will more or less pass over. And curiously, we've overshot this turn that it created there, probably because we were still accelerating when I did the direct. Well, I'll just let it roll back onto that. I could do another direct, but won't bother in this case. So 10,000. Landing lights will come off, and we will bing bong the cabin by cycling of the no smoking sign. Now I know if at least some operators in the US and possibly Canada as well, they leave the landing lights on up until 18,000 because of the possibility of VFR traffic up to that altitude. I guess I haven't done that in this instance, but oh well. This down here that we're passing over is Highway 201, or the Calgary Ring Road. In the absence of anything else to do, what else can we see out the window? It's pretty much still the airport there. Let's see, Bow River, Glenmore Reservoir. Our obvious features on the way up and out. And we're passing through some cloud here. And, interesting. TAT is still 11 degrees, but close enough, honestly. I'll put the engine anti-ice on. It's inevitably going to get a little bit cooler as we climb eventually. That is Chestermere, I think. And we might not be able to see much more of the city as we climb here. Yeah, probably not. So once we're clear of this cloud, I'll put the anti-ice off and probably the seatbelt sign as well, since things seem to have smoothed off and we're at a sufficiently reduced angle of climb that people can get up without being excessively endangered. Zoom that out. We've got upval, and top of climb is way the hell out there. Airbus is not necessarily known for their climbs, especially the A321. What else is out the window that I can point at? Pretty much right at the southeast corner of the city here, which is where I used to live. Although the exact area, I think, has already disappeared behind us, so probably not too much more to say about that. Yeah, what else is visible? No. Highway 2, running south of the city, which eventually diverges, well, it carries on and then you can turn off it there. It goes to Okotoks. Oh, actually, tell you what, there's one thing that I probably will be able to point at, I think. As we get on here, so clear that cloud for now, pop the engine anti-ice off, and we'll see if the thing I'm thinking of is visible over the nose here. And that's 18,000, set standard. Standard barrow set, passing 18.5 now. That's all good. Yeah, I think we should be able to see the thing in mere moments. Seatbelt sign can come off. And yeah, so off the nose here, this is the town of High River, and immediately south of it we should see the High River Airport about here, which is where I learned to fly in real life, so that's the thing which I intended to point out. I can't quite spot it though yet, admittedly, must be said. And obviously due east of it here is Frank Lake, which is a very useful VFR landmark, because you can see it from a pretty long way off. Ah, there's the airport, so there's runway 07 and 25 is the main one here, which is paved, and then there's a secondary gravel runway running not quite perpendicular to it, which I used all of once. Generally use the paved one when we possibly could. So yeah, there it is. Just thought I would point that out as a bit of a personal point of interest. And I guess we are passing over Uppval at this point, so we're getting a little bit of a turn. Yeah, might have to pay that a visit in the sim at some point as well. Anyway, that's just disappearing under the nose now. And I don't think I have too much more to add as we head on up towards our cruising altitude, so I will probably come back when we're a bit closer to our destination. Welcome back. We are just a tick over 160 miles shy of top of descent, and it's time to get our arrival squared away. So, looking over at the OFP here, we can see that we've got the Carter 1 arrival DBS transition, that's here, and a runway 34 right. Now, I think I already prepared the charts for that before, didn't I? No, I didn't. Okay, well, we'll do that now then. So, Salt Lake. Elevation, tell you what actually, what's the temperature like there again? It's 8 degrees, so no need for cold air altimeter corrections. I'm once again spared more math, so runway 34 right, Carter 1 arrival. we'll take the ILS, and I'll grab the ground and parking charts. I'll make a note of where our actual gate is in a minute, because we will go to the actual one, or near enough if there isn't some traffic sitting there already. So let's get this entered. So, arrival, ILS, 34 right, Carter 1, DBS, insert, and then we will check it against the chart. So, plan mode, starting from, Dubois is the proper name of that VOR. So, let's see. Head on in from there. First altitude restriction, I think here is Weber, 12,000 above. Or nope, we got another one. Wait, Joe, where is that? I got ahead of myself. This one here, Brigham City, 14,000 above, right? Then let's see. Starter sets. Oh, okay, because we're heading down this way. 14,000, Diane 11,000, 11,000. We sort of skirt along the edge of the valley here. And then from there we have a manual discontinuity. We'll continue on that heading until probably we're about a beam hacker, and then in the absence of any ATC or radar vectors, which we're not using, I'll just do a direct to hacker, and then that will be us onto the approach and on in. Make a note of the MSA. It's going to be 13,000. So don't generally remember that. I'm gonna guess that's moved our top descent a little bit. So where is that? It's probably moved it out actually. So it's well past Dubois. So that won't be coming up for a little while yet. Let's see. It'll be at 22:55. And 168 miles, so we do have a little ways to go. Now, would now be a good time to do the arrival briefing? I guess I might as well, so let's see, going from my notes. The arrival, as we've just programmed, is the Carter 1 with the Dubois transition. MSA is going to be 13,000 feet. And we have indicated, well, some segment altitudes as well on the way in. Let's see, runway is going to be an ILS onto 34 right. Minimums for a Cat 1 ILS, which is what we will shoot today, is going to be 4,430. I guess we can enter this data as we go as well. 4,430 barometric. Let's see, go around. What does that look like? Basically, it's a, well, direct to Wasatch VOR, and then direct to the Ogden VOR, climbing to 9,000, which is pretty much a straight line because Ogden's up here as well. So that's all good. Extra fuel and time. Haven't done a fuel check in a while. I can't imagine we're burning excessively. I might do a fuel check at Dubois as we pass, but we should still have probably at least 20 minutes worth of extra fuel. So that's probably nothing to worry about. Guidance for the approach will be ILS. Landing flaps setting, we'll do config 3 because it's a nice long runway and we'll be vacating sort of towards the far end. We don't have a landing performance calculator in the AnyBuilds A321, so we are taking a bit of a guess, but I think flaps 3 and auto brakes low should be more than adequate. Something that I chronically forget to do, let's brief the taxi in. So pulling up the ground chart. So 3-4 right. We'll just vacate wherever's handy on the left, and I'll recheck which gate we're going to in a little bit. But in principle, it's just going to A or B, and I do have some up-to-date scenery installed for it, because the Salt Lake City Airport is currently in the midst of an expansion. So it should be reasonably up-to-date. Hotspots for the taxi in. I don't see any actually, so it should be relatively normal as these things go. Shouldn't be anything special or non-standard on the way in, and in terms of threats for the arrival, weather and visibility are good, so we should be able to see the terrain, therefore it's not really much of a threat. So I think that's about it for the departure briefing. I just need to enter the remaining data into the approach page here, so yeah, altimeter 3028, temperature 8, winds 280 at 6 knots, so a pretty trivial crosswind. Transition altitude still 18,000, config 3 is selected, VLS of 143 knots, and we haven't run the wing anti-ice, so that doesn't raise our minimum speed. It would if we had run it, but we haven't, so it doesn't. Is vaguely what I mean by that. So yeah, everything is in. We're still a ways up from top of descent, so I will probably actually come back as we're about to, as we're getting towards initiating the approach. Welcome back. We are heading down towards the approach at this point. We are just about to pass transition altitude, so we'll set the altimeter to current setting, which should still be, oh no, new one's just out now, 3029. So that is set. In terms of scenery, obviously the sort of titular Salt Lake is out ahead and to our right. On the left is the city of Ogden, and Hill Air Force Base is here. That also has an excellent museum, which you should absolutely visit if you get the chance. And what else? There was some item I was going to revisit on the way down here, but not sure I can rightly remember what it is now. Oh. Seatbelt sign should probably come on pretty soon, so our arrival time is 23:23 Zulu. Generally you get the seatbelt sign on by 15 minutes to landing, or 15,000 feet, so I think is how that's meant to go. But we'll put it on now anyway. Oh yeah, that was the other thing, was with regards to briefing the taxi in, our arrival gate is A30, which I've stuck in the scratch pad down here so that I can remember. So we can belatedly finish our taxi-in briefing. So pull up the parking chart actually for that. So let's see. Probably take taxiway Golf here, turn in. Alpha 30 is on the far side, so we'll take taxiway Golf to there's one echo here, and then on into Alpha 30. That should be pretty easy. Review that on the ground chart as well, so doodle in this way, and there it is. I'll leave the approach chart in here, and I think for reference when the time comes to dial in the, I say that actually the missed approach altitude is 9,000. Okay, yeah, just to keep that in mind for the dialing in of that. It's a pretty long straight in towards the final approach fix here, so yeah, we're going to be doing a pretty long crack down parallel to the field and then back, because you can see it, there it is, the Salt Lake City Airport, so we'll be going quite a long ways past it before we turn back in. So that is that. Now, actually, we're a little late for our 10,000 foot checks, because at least per Airbus SOPs, you're supposed to do them 10,000 feet above the field elevation, so we should have done them, in principle, at 14,231 feet. So we'll do our 10,000 foot items now. So basically, we've already got constraints on the EFIS here. Put the ILS on, and then up top, landing lights come on. We will bong the cabin with the smoking sign, so that they are aware that we're passing 10,000 foot field elevation. Seatbelt sign is already on. Alright, and since altimeter is set and we've already passed 10,000 feet above aerodrome elevation, we can run the approach checklist. So, Barrow 3029, cross-checked, seatbelt sign, verify on. Minimums, that's going to be 4,430 Barrow, auto brake set to low. Engine mode selector is normal. That's the approach checklist complete. We might be kind of well, waiting a while before the next necessary items, but yeah. In that case, we can admire the view, which does greatly resemble the view that I had when I was on this flight as a passenger a few weeks ago. I was seated on the starboard side of the aircraft, so I was getting the view of the mountains here. And oddly enough, I thought that the all of the bodies of water below us were actually a very strange color, but it was actually just the polarization of my sunglasses interacting with the window, so that was a little weird. Alright, so we've got the, that's one thing we can do. The ILS appears to be active here, so we can verify that. So that's 1095 India Sierra Lima Charlie, and that's all in there. In general, the Airbus will automatically tune all of your navigation radios for you, but never hurts to check against things. So yeah, and you'll recall, since we passed Ogden back there, and the Ogden VOR is on our missed approach procedure, so that's a reference there. Not that I think we're going to need it, but, well, we brief for things we don't think we're going to need. So, actually, just starting to heave into view over here is, it'll be a little bit clearer as to what it is when we're actually passing it, but over in this area here, there's a whacking great hole in the ground, which happens to be the world's deepest open pit mine. It's a copper mine. So we'll probably get a pretty good view of that on the way by. I certainly did, once again, when I was a passenger on this same flight. Yeah, the city itself is on our left. It's a pretty interesting place, really, because it's kind of in a hole. It sort of climbs up the valley on either side, which means that if you're at sort of the eastern or western edge of the city, you can sort of look out and see all the way clear through to the other end. It's a quite interesting sight, especially at night. Anyway, we're going to be in a position where we're going to be wanting to make our turn relatively soon. I'll probably just do direct hacker here when we're roughly a bit. So, yeah, there it is. You can see the... Now that we're a little bit closer to it, the sim almost gives you an idea of the sheer scale of the thing. But, yeah, quite deep down there. I guess if I really wanted to be the... sort of on-the-spot tourism board here. I should have looked up how deep it is. I don't actually know, but it looks like it could be like... That looks like it could easily be 1,000 feet. Potentially more. We shall see, he says, looking it up on his firm. This is totally a thing that I should be doing, getting ready for the approach. It doesn't say in the summary at the top of the Wikipedia page, so you're going to have to look that one up for yourself, and so will I. Because I'm going to have to be a little bit busy in a moment here. So, yeah, lateral discontinuity ahead, that is fine. A beam hacker, I will initiate the approach phase. And give her a direct. There we go. And I'll put 6,100 feet in as our authorized altitude, since that's where the final approach point is. So speed, descent, 6,100 blue. We may or may not overshoot the localizer, depending whether we are able to get rid of some speed on the way around the corner here. He says, like he's helpless to do anything about it. Put a little bit of speed brake in to get back towards that green dot speed. That should help our descent rate and also close up the turn a little bit. Yeah. Passing a little bit beyond the southern end of the city there. And speed's coming back nicely. I don't think we need the speed brake anymore. We do need to be below 9,000 when we pass Hacker, which shouldn't be a problem. I'll take a sip of tea. I made a cup around the time that we hit top of descent. So, yeah, we did do the approach checklist, that's all good. It's really just landing items once we get a little bit further down now. Very scenic arrival, that's a big part of why I wanted to do it here. It's a pretty remarkable place. So, coming up on 9,000 will easily make that altitude constraint, and we don't need to be down to 6,100 really until we're at Shovel here, which is the final approach fix. So that is all good. I don't think there's much else to be rechecked. Always nice to be vigilant about these things, but something I tend to chronically forget is the seatbelt sign, but we already checked and rechecked that, so I'm not super worried about it. Our landing flaps config 3 is already set up. Estimated fuel on board below minimum. Rubbish. Negative 1.2? What are you? I think the FMS has gone a bit Looney Tunes here. Unless we've got a catastrophic fuel leak, I don't think we're going to be at negative 1.2 at the point of landing. I think that might be a wee little bit of a bug, so we will disregard that. Because we've still got 6,240 pounds of fuel on board, which, I guess we can do a very, very late fuel check from the OFP, but that's probably not terribly necessary. Tell you what, let's arm approach actually. And there we go, Lodestar. Yeah, I'm not going to bother with this, actually. Put that away. Yeah. 2,500 we just passed there. I think we'll go for flaps 1. So speed checked, flaps 1. Might be a little early with that because we probably are going to be level for a little bit here, but whatever. I'll maybe do flaps 2 and drop the gear just before we capture the glide slope. Leveling off at 6,100 there. As soon as the glide slope is captured, we'll enter the missed approach altitude, which is 9,000. But we're not quite there yet. And yeah, I probably could have held the flaps until, probably until the glide slope was alive even, but oh well. Why am I getting a speed brake thing? That should be... There we go. Speed brake is in. Maybe it was like 1% off from the detent or something. Whatever. I'm expecting that glide slope to come alive any second now. And there it is. So we'll get ourselves configured and slow down a little bit before we capture it. So flaps 2, speed check, flaps 2. Flaps 2 speed is going to be quite a lot lower, so that's going to come right back. So that's flaps 2 is set, and gear down. Gear down 3 greens. And I think now's as good a time as any. Flaps 3. We'll also put the lights on, arm the spoilers. We still haven't got the cabin ready on the memo, so we will press the bing bong to tell them to get on with it. And there we go. Cabin is ready. Landing checklist. So, go around altitude. Oh, actually forgot that. Why we have checklist. Go around altitude, 9,000 set. Cabin crew is advised. Ecam memo. Landing, no blue. Landing checklist complete. And just passing 1,000 now. We're already stable before the 500-foot gate, so that is fine. Without further ado, my aircraft. Adjust my chair a little bit. That's better. And one last sip of tea before landing. There we go. Things are pretty calm and pretty stable. And just as I say that, we get some bumps. Oh well, I should have kept my big trap shut. No, we'll make the best of it anyway. Continue.
100. 50, 40, 30, 20. Retard.
Any flare.
Retard. Retard.
Ooh. Bit of a nudge there. Oh well. First green, decel. We won't make this taxiway, but we'll probably make the next one. 70 knots, reversers off, manual brakes. And off we go. Alright. Hit the clock. And should be good to clean her up. I'll just get ourselves pointed the other direction down the taxiway, and I'll do the other after takeoff items. After landing items. Okie dokie, we're heading in more or less a straight line, so we already did spoilers and flaps. We'll do the lights. And turn off. Radar and predicted wind shear. Off. Engine mode selector still normal. Flaps are already up. Degas. Transponder standby. And now is probably about the right time to start the APU, so we'll do that now. And just briefly pull up my ground chart again so that I don't miss the turn. We are after, actually it's only on the parking chart. Hum. 1 Echo, and it should be pretty obvious because it'll be on the far side of this branch of the terminal here. So, anyway, after landing checklist, radar and predictive wind shear. Off. After landing checklist complete. And APU is spinning up as it should. Strobes can go back to auto, actually. I feel like this building is not supposed to be here. Yeah, I'll just take a little detour around that, because I think that may be an artifact of an bug. Should pass well clear of it, though. Okay, well, just ignore that, I guess. Say hi to the WestJet 737. Despite being based in Calgary, WestJet does not offer services to Salt Lake City from there, at least not at this time of year. But they do from somewhere else, probably Vancouver or Toronto. Well, that's a little weird. Anyway, turning on in. And it looks like we more or less have our pick over here, so we will go to our actual designated one. It is Alpha 30, so the third one from the end. Alright then. Oh, and there are handy markers here that we can't see until we're almost past them. Okay. Well, that's alright. Huh. Come to think of it, when I was at the actual Salt Lake City airport a few weeks ago, I stood behind these windows right here and looked out at this apron. Except it was a much worse day that day. It was snowing and foggy and awful. Anyway, make sure we don't miss designated one. So yeah, Alpha 30, right there. The apron's a little bumpy here. We'll get our speed down a bit. And bring her on over. Shut the taxi light off. And in the absence of any kind of marshaller, I will self-marshal in a cack-handed fashion using the external view. Slightly off. And that's probably far enough, to be honest. Okay, so at the gate, accumulator pressure is good. We'll put the parking brake on. And at that point, the APU is already in, so we can shut down the engines. And APU lead, fuel pumps off. Lights, you can put the beacon off, and There's our door page. Slides are disarmed so we can put seatbelt sign off. And at that point, I'll just do the ground menu. We'll grab the jetway and have him do the luggage. Alright, that is connected. And parking checklist. So, parking brake and chocks. Parking brake is set. I can't put the chocks back in because of a bug, so we'll just leave the parking brake set. Engine's off. Wing lights are off. There's a curious reason for that. Apparently the wing lights, because they're near the main cabin door, the bulbs produce sufficient heat that if you have them on the ground, they can set fire to the jetway shroud, is the reason you must ensure those are off. I'm like 99% sure that's true. That might be just about it. Tell you what, because the temperature is, well, you know what, I think we can get away with connecting external power and shutting the APU off, so. External power is connected, APU bleed off, APU master off, and that, I think, will be it. So we can pop out the back and say goodbye to our passengers, and they've all buggered off already. Well, anticlimactic as that is, I think that is going to be about it for this little journey. I hope it has been at least reasonably interesting to watch. Very much open to suggestions for potential routes to feature for this sim in the future. And I think that will be all for now.